kill. We don't die, we multiply.
My parents were big fans of the late comedian Robin Harris. I remember them going to see one of his stand-ups, and he was frequently quoted in my household. For me, I knew Robin Harris as the mad black daddy in House Party when he was waiting to tear Kid a new one after he got home from sneaking out.
I wouldn't do that just yet, because your ass is mine.
My parents thought that Robin Harris's funniest jokes were the ones about Bebe, a friend of a woman he was dating who has some really badass kids. The bit was so popular that they made an animated movie about it in 1992. Directed by Bruce W. Smith, who went on to create The Proud Family. Though it was a box office failure, I absolutely loved Bebe's Kids. You all know how I felt about any type of representation in the 90s. But what usually goes unsaid about it is the truthful, humanizing, and empathetic depiction of the environment and social structure of Bebe and her badass kids. Welcome to the Fourth Wall Break. I'm Johnny the Fourth. I'm a production professional that loves media, and I love dissecting it and taking it apart and finding out what makes it tick. Today, I'm discussing Bebe's Kids and the socioeconomic conditions that can create badass kids. If you like my content, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, or even just give a like. Any little bit helps. Bebe's Kids is an animated movie that tells the story of a bachelor, a fictional Robin Harris, voiced by Faison Love in his very first feature. The real Robin Harris died a couple of years before the movie was made. It was also the first animated movie with an all-black cast, starring Vanessa Bell Calloway, who we all might remember from Coming to America.
Bark like a dog.
Marcus Houston was in the movie, Tone Loc was in the movie, and he voiced the youngest of Bebe's kids, Pee-wee. For a quick recap for the uninitiated, cartoon Robin meets a beautiful, sophisticated single mom, Jamaica, at a funeral of all places.
You know I like funerals. I'm glad I went to a funeral.
I'll be glad when I go to yours.
She invites him to an amusement park, Fun World, with her meek but smart kid, Leon. Leon is well behaved. Robin agrees to go and picks them up the following morning. Little does he know, she's brought along her friend Bebe's 3 neglected but badass kids, LaShawn, Khalil, and Pee-wee.
These are Bebe's kids.
And hijinks ensue. Bebe's Kids was on constantly when I was a kid. It got to the point where I could recite it word for word. I remember watching it for the first time at my grandma Connie's house, where we would watch a lot of different things as a family. And I remember her specifically saying, "So that's how you draw black noses, huh?" I never forgot that. And I started drawing black noses just like that for a long time. It's also a stark reminder that we weren't used to seeing ourselves in an animated form like that. The movie was a box office bomb, not able to make back its $10 million budget. But it's a black classic in most of our eyes, certainly mine.
Don't try to leave them, Robin. That's why they shot their daddy.
The songs, oh yeah, did I mention that this movie is also a musical? The songs were fun to sing along to, and my sister and I did so often. It was modern, some of the songs were rap songs. I was trying to be a rapper my entire life. I love the soundtrack. It all felt really familiar, and it all felt like a part of my culture. Most people think that this movie is a mildly entertaining romp about some bad kids, and they're mostly right. But there's a scene towards the end of the movie that explains everything about these kids and why they act the way that they do. And it really pulls at the heartstrings. It's also the subtext that I plan to pull from today. Was Bebe a hedonistic, irresponsible parent? Or was she just too busy trying to provide? The movie kind of leaves it open, but for the sake of this video, I'm going with the second option. Towards the end of the movie, after pretty much tearing the amusement park down, Robin can't wait to drop these bad kids home to Bebe and give her a piece of his mind about how terrible their behavior was.
I better walk them in.
Don't let me walk him in, because I want to give Bebe a piece of my mind.
But when he takes them inside, he realizes Bebe isn't home because she's at work. In fact, Bebe is never home. She's always at work. The kids don't have anything to eat, the apartment is in disarray in a bad neighborhood, and they're apparently left to their own devices most of the time. Bebe leaves a note on her fridge, so we know that she's at least an involved mom in some capacity, but her family has no material means and her kids have no supervision.
It's $10. Call the pizza man.
He don't come around here no more.
Bebe's struggling to make ends meet. And a lot of us can empathize and relate to that. When people talk about the 90s, they remember the color TVs, the booming MTV era, and the booming economy. But underneath all that optimism was a generation of families stretched really thin and kids growing up in the cracks. By the early 90s, most major cities had already lost the kind of jobs that once supported entire neighborhoods. Factories were gone, and what replaced them were low-wage service jobs, unstable work with long hours and no benefits. So while adults were working harder than ever, they were home less than ever. That's where the so-called latchkey kid came from. Children raising themselves between school and bedtime because their parents were busy at work trying to put food on the table. My sister and I were such kids. We used to carry our keys over our necks. Many of us remember our parents calling from work, making sure we did our homework, making sure we did our chores, and making sure we took out that ground beef out of the freezer. My sister and I lived on a diet of Hot Pockets and bagel bites until one of our parents got home from work and was able to make some food for us. We weren't struggling. I lived in a 2-parent household, so they were able to bounce off of each other, but it was difficult at times because they had to work. My sister was in charge of me since she was older. I know that I gave her some rough times back in the day. During this time in the 90s, the war on drugs and mass incarceration tore through Black and low-income communities. Mandatory minimums and 3 strikes laws didn't just lock people up, they hollowed families out. By the mid-90s, more Black men were in prison than they were in college. That absence of fathers, brothers, and uncles left entire communities without their anchors, and women carrying the full load of survival. Welfare reform came in 1996, a few years after this movie came out, with the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act. But the name says everything. Poverty was reframed as a moral failure and not a policy failure. You had to work, but who watched your kids while you went to work? Childcare, transportation, and after-school programs were all underfunded. So families were forced to choose between staying home and staying afloat. The state offered structure for adults, but none for their children. Meanwhile, the public spaces that once kept kids grounded, community centers, parks, rec halls, they disappeared under budget cuts and privatization. Those third spaces where kids could just be kids were soon replaced by no loitering signs and increased policing. So when young people hung out on the streets and on the steps in our neighborhoods, they weren't seen as just bored kids. They were seen as threats to society. And that's where media picked up the narrative. In 1995, the super predator myth was born. The idea that a new generation of young, remorseless Black kids was coming to terrorize America. America does love its scapegoats. The fear stuck, and it shaped how the country viewed every loud, unsupervised, or simply misunderstood kid. When Bebe's Kids hit theaters in 1992, those stereotypes were already working their way to the zeitgeist of the mainstream culture. But instead of feeding into it, the film flipped the script. Yeah, we laughed at Robin's woes as those kids ruined his date, and I certainly loved the rebelliousness of those kids. I mean, it was the 90s. Almost every kid movie was about a rebellious kid. Think about it. Really think about it. 90s kids films were all about bad kids. But that one scene at the end of the movie, that was a smartly added reminder that these kids don't exist in a vacuum, that it's not just antics or hijinks. It showed kids that society had already written off, and daring us to ask why. A friend of mine, Nat, is a high school teacher in a predominantly Black high school. We were talking one day and he said something really profound about the Black students that he teaches. He said, it's not so much that our kids need to find themselves. Most of the time, they just need to understand how the world sees them. Community is super important to me. I think we're losing it day by day, to be honest, with social media and the internet and the post 9/11 era. We need to depend on our community, on our neighbors, on our Jamikas, to help us watch our kids when we have to pick up another shift. I often wax poetic about missing that type of community in the 90s. I remember it well. I remember whenever I was cursing outside or doing something I wasn't supposed to do, and a neighbor saw me, and she'd yell at me and be like, Johnny, you know better than that. Don't make me tell your mother. And if she saw me do it a couple more times, guess who found out later on? Ma. And when I got home, I'd get my butt tore up just like Kid did at the end of house party. But that's how we looked after each other. That's how my parents' generation looked after each other. We're a community. We're communal. We're supposed to be. We're human beings. We as an audience never see Bebe and Bebe's Kids, and I think that's a great creative choice. We all know or even may have been raised by a single parent. So with the lack of actually seeing a Bebe, we have to put our imaginations at work. And I think that's really smart. In that way, for me, she never becomes a stereotype. She's not wearing an outfit or a certain hairstyle that would immortalize women that look like her to suddenly be a Bebe that can't take care of her kids. She's instead a concept, and you have to use your imagination to embody what you think she may look like. And that's really profound and really smart. She's absent, but her presence is felt in the entire movie, especially when we get to that one scene. I'm grateful for those movies that help me see my community in a different light. Flaws and bad behavior and all, but with reality and truth. I know a bunch of Bebe's Kids. We all do, and we all deserve a day at Fun World.
And look, your mom's so dumb, they told her it was chilly outside, she wouldn't got a bowl.
We really are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We've been through so much that even our kids' cartoons have harsh reality within it. A lot of us, especially in today's economy, feel like we have to get through things alone. But it's that compassionate stranger, that compassionate neighbor, that compassionate friend, coworker, whatever. Those are the ones that help us get through. Every day I try and be that compassionate person. I mean, I fall short every day. I'm just a human being, but it's a stark reminder to remember to just have empathy, because empathy is dying out in today's world. We live in a climate where rage, apathy, and selfishness is par the course. As long as we're kind and compassionate to one another, the mantra stays the same. We don't die, we multiply.
Message!
That's my video. Thank you for watching. If you like this video and others like it, make sure you subscribe to my page, hit that notification button. Did you like Bebe's Kids growing up? What do you think about the rebellious 90s and all those bad kids that we saw on TV? Did that make us bad adults? Did that change us in any way? I have no idea, but sound off in the comments below if you think so. As always, stay blessed, stay inspired, and I see you. I truly see you. I hope you see me too.